Welcome to Echevarria Travel, where we deliver all destinations from pole to pole. Whether it's tickets to a local event, a group bus trip, air travel for families, or cruises, we are here to lighten the load and take the stress out of planning your trip. We offer excellent travel packages for everyone, and we specialize in providing travel assistance to the special needs and disabilities community. Echevarria Travel provides education and information on traveling with medical conditions and accessibility options in airports, on cruises, and in foreign countries. Before you give up on taking that dream trip because you have special needs that seem to make it too difficult, please contact us for a consultation first. Echevarria Travel's award-winning founder, Cheryl Echevarria, loves to travel and has personally overcome the challenges of traveling with blindness and special medical needs. Call us today at 631-456-5394 for a free consultation about your trip and explore the world with Echevarria Travel.
And make sure we're recording. Okay. Good afternoon, everybody. Cheryl Echevarria here from Echevarria Travel. This is Friday, Talk Travel with Cheryl, ending week of July 17th, 2020. Some travel news. If you have been watching, you know that the final two theme parks over at Walt Disney World opened today. That is Epcot and Hollywood Studios. If you've been following me, if you haven't been following me, Nelson and I were up at Epcot and Hollywood Studios back in January this year. We went on the new Millennium Falcon ride. We did, of course, the new tours of the gondolas that go from Hollywood Studios over to Epcot with the various resorts in between. That's fantastic if you like that kind of thing. It's less hassle than taking the buses around to the different theme parks and resorts inside Walt Disney World. So that is a fantastic, cool place to relax while you're at Walt Disney World. Also, Miss Corona is still out there. I mean, things are getting better. Things are opening. St. Lucia, Barbados opened. Mexico has always been open, but it's all depending on the resort you're going to and the destinations. If you're planning on traveling, please reach out to a reliable travel expert, whether it's myself or somebody else you're using locally. And I hope, again, that's me, because we service all 50 states, to know the latest on the new openings, the coronavirus testing that you'll need, and anything else. Most destinations that we are seeing, especially in the Caribbean and Mexico, you're going to the resorts, but a lot of the excursions are not open yet because they're either in phase 1 or phase 2 of their openings. Just like in your own state, there's phase 1, phase 2. Florida's gone back a little bit because we're down a really big hot spot. But again, until we have a vaccination out there, until things change, everything is just a game in progress. Let's take it with a grain of salt and, relax and take it easy. We'll all be back to normal soon. I know it's not fun being inside, but hey, get out, take a walk. And I have to say, I'm going to bring out my guests in a minute, but I'm going to be focusing on, and I've been doing that the last couple of weeks, is traveling within the United States. We have such a great country here in the United States. We forget that we have so many places to visit and see that we never do. I lived all my life in New York. Some of my favorite places to go was the Catskill Mountains, Niagara Falls, go to the Statue of Liberty, going down Broadway, walking around Manhattan. And one of my favorite places is the Bronx Zoo in New York. I went there almost every summer to visit my grandma and stuff, and one of my favorite zoos to go to. And if you're an animal person, and then right here in Florida, we got Jacksonville, the oldest city in America. We got Key West on the other end, almost 90 miles from Cuba. We have both coasts, West and East Coast, full of beaches. So let's remember where, people say staycations. What about just visiting someplace here in the U.S. that we've never been to? And as I mentioned, we're planning on Alaska next year. So if you haven't signed up yet for our Alaska cruise, it's a 7-day round trip out of Seattle, Washington. You do not need a passport for that. So we're going to be going to Juneau, Kashkan, so many other destinations, and with Princess Cruise Line, they also bring the destination on the ship as well. So they're going to have many exciting activities, including they partnered with Animal Planet, Discovery Planet, National Geographic. So whether or not you're into all that exciting educational things going on, they have something for everybody, for all ages. So, and then also we're going to the Grand Canyon in March of 2021. And again, we're going to go to Canyonlands with Bryce and Zion, and of course, the Majesty herself, Grand Canyon, for March. So now is the time to make your deposits for this. Reach out to it at 407-910-6469, or set up your virtual consultation with me at reservations@echevarriatravel.com. If I'm talking too fast for you, all the description of today's show will be in the comment area, both on the podcast and on YouTube, and we do have this transcribed for you as well. So without further ado, I'm going to bring on my guest, Ms. Patricia Murphy. First of all, she is a veteran. I'm so glad to have our veterans on the show. She also owns her own business, because marketing Smarty Pants, and women-owned businesses. We are the greatest out there. We're some of the best entrepreneurs out there. And she's also the president of the Florida Association of Veteran-Owned Businesses. What a long list of things that we're going to be talking about today. Patricia, are you there? And welcome to Talk Travel with Cheryl.
Great, thanks for having me. I'd actually like to start talking about Alaska, actually, if that's okay.
That is fine. You can talk about whatever you like.
All right. I don't know if we've talked before several times, but I don't know if I told you where I was stationed when I was in the Air Force. I was actually in Alaska for 5 years.
Awesome. So whereabouts in Alaska were you?
Well, I was stationed in Elmendorf, which is Anchorage. But when you're in Alaska, you just have to go explore all sorts of things. I grew up right here in Florida, and so that was quite an experience, moving from Florida and then to Texas for training, and then moving on to Alaska from there and experiencing just this amazing change in nature and culture even. But so anytime you mention an Alaska cruise, I tell everybody, just you have to go, you have to go.
Exactly. And I haven't been myself, and I want to see the glaciers. I want to hear the calving. I want to see the orcas. I'm very into animals and the flora and fauna, and it's our first time, so we're not going up by Denali, but it's good with the Inside Passage and Glacier Bay and all that. So everybody gets a little something to see, a little something, and then hopefully we can go back and explore even more, maybe on a land trip as well. So
always go back. You could go back every year, every couple of years, and never see the same thing twice and not get bored. There's so much, just with nature alone, not to mention the culture and the history that's available, and the diversity. I think most people don't realize how diverse Alaska really is. So if you're looking for cuisine, like authentic cuisine, like Korean cuisine, or all these other ones, they have those in Anchorage, and those restaurant owners come from those countries. They migrate over. It's not very far, and they go there and start a new life. And so it's very rich and diverse, and in that regards, the nature is just breathtaking, absolutely breathtaking.
Exactly.
How big Mother Nature is, and I cannot express that enough. I think, going to Alaska is probably the closest thing you can do, the closest to visiting another country you can get without leaving the actual United States.
Exactly. And like I was saying, we have so much here. I mean, the world has so many interesting things to look at and see and explore, but so many people forget what we have right here in our own country, that people, oh, I want to go to Europe, oh, I want to go to Asia, oh, I want to go to the Caribbean. That's great. I'd love to send you there, but let's remember where we come from, and beautiful, from sea to shining sea. Alaska was originally, Russia. It wasn't ours until 50 years ago.
Right.
We have to think about that as well. So,
even inside of Alaska, the terrain is so vast. You have, fishing towns, you have, beaches, you have mountains, you have wilderness, you have kind of plains land, which is more like tundra, is not really fun to walk, but, there's all this diversity in the wildlife. I mean, in the winter, I have sat out in the middle of nowhere in a truck over the tundra and looking, and on the distance, you see all this movement on the horizon, and you grab the binoculars, you're like, what is that? And, without the binoculars, it just looks like herds of cattle just going and going and going. But you pick up the binoculars and you see it's thousands and thousands of caribou.
Oh,
and you
amazing.
go to look a little, you take the binoculars and you zoom in a little more, and you're like, why are these guys running? And you see wolves, a pack of wolves chasing them. And it's so surreal because you're sitting in this truck literally in the middle of absolutely nowhere, King Salmon, Alaska, nothing happening whatsoever. It's 30, 40 below. Nothing. There's nothing going on. But
I gotta take you with me. I gotta pack you in the suitcase and take you with me.
I would love to go. It's just phenomenal. It's just absolutely phenomenal. And another thing you don't realize is bald eagles. You'll see bald eagles there as often as you see a crow here. They're just everywhere. Absolutely everywhere.
When I was doing the talk show with Princess Cruise Lines, my business development manager that I worked for years with, he's on furlough because of all the Corona stuff going on. But he's been there 40-something times. And he says every time you go, something else is new there that you haven't seen before.
Yeah.
From the Indians and he said he went one time and they had just killed a whale and eating the, celebrating catching the whale and everything, and it's a big to do there. So
it is.
It's survival of the fittest up there.
Mm-hmm.
So we take everything we take everything. We have the supermarkets right here, and we don't realize sometimes there are people out there, hunting for just feeding the whole town. Kind of
right, thing. Right. And I've seen, the start of the Iditarod and, how that works. And it's really very interesting. Very interesting.
Exactly.
You just have to go.
And that's one of the things they're going to bring on the ship, the puppies and the first lady that actually won the Iditarod. So there's so many things that are being planned that I'm very excited about, and we'll be posting more about the trip as we move forward. So anyway, moving on, I want to talk about, first of all, marketing Smarty Pants. How long have you been social media? What after you got out of the military, what made you decide to go towards social media and being in the business you're in now?
That's a good question. So when I got out of the military, I actually got out because my daughter was born, and at the time, the Air Force was still very heavily burdened with 6-month rotations in Saudi Arabia. So after the first Gulf War, the majority of the ground troops came home. Well, the Air Force was left, after the Iraqi wars. So all of our bases were in Saudi Arabia. And once the war was over, we were still patrolling the no-fly zone over Iraq. And so that was all Air Force supported. So when the majority of those ground troops came home, the Air Force was still supporting that mission, up until 9/11. So our troops had these 6-month, and airplanes as well had these 6-month rotations. And you know, in my timeline and my tour and where I was at with my service, and my daughter was born, I knew that as soon as I came off of maternity leave and got back into that mobility status, if I re-enlisted and as soon as I went into my mobility status after having her, that it was going to be time for me to go. So I really was facing, you know, leaving, you know, a 6-month, 12-month-old baby behind for, you know, 6 months at a time. And it really, you know, being a new mom, my first child, it really wasn't something that I wanted for her. So I made the decision to separate. And then, so I was home with the kids for years and homeschooled them, and then went to college, after my youngest was born, and, used my GI Bill, got my bachelor's degree in marketing. Absolutely fell in love with marketing in that arena, and decided to, you know, kind of choose a specialty. Digital marketing is fairly easy to do from home, and or at least remotely, so I don't have to be, you know, face to face to people all the time in order to do that. And I just reached out to a few business owners that were my friends, and I said, hey, you know, you want some free marketing help? And of course they were like, yes. So I kind of dived in, you know, with both feet, and, you know, just learning how to market, and kind of what to do. And it's a lot of on the job training. So, you know, marketing degree helps you understand and develop strategies in that, but then you learn the execution of it, you know, day to day, with hands-on. So since, you know, the last 7 years or so when I was doing that, you know, social media has really taken off, which is excellent, and it's a great tool. So I've just really spent the time doing that. I started my business about 5 years ago, and kind of been doing it part-time, on and off, till about the last, you know, 18 months, 12 months, and really been taking off the last 12 months. So I love working with small businesses. I have a passion for them, for lots of reasons. One of those reasons really is, you know, small businesses have an excellent why. You know, they have a passion for the most part. They do what they do because they love it. It's a dream for them for the most part. So exactly. They always have a great story that's easy for me to connect to, and in turn makes it very easy for me to, you know, enable their clients to connect with them in social media, or, you know, their website, or, you know, their messaging, or whatever that is. So I'm a big fan of a great story. I'm a big fan of, you know, a reason behind your business. And, you know, it's easy, if it's easy to connect with, it's easy to communicate that too. So that's why I love small businesses, and really small business owners are kind of some of the most, you know, innovative, and dynamic people I know. So I just like hanging out with them.
Exactly. We like hanging out with you too. What do you think today, with so much social media out there, from Twitter, Facebook, Instagram, a small business like myself, what are some of the mistakes that somebody goes out and does without realizing, you know, they're doing everything, but they're not getting the response that they want? What kind of mistakes are people making when they're doing social media without somebody like you to direct them?
I mean, I find that some of the big, and I hate to call it a mistake, I would say if you're going to label something actually a mistake, I would say your biggest mistake is not doing anything. That would be an actual mistake. You know, being able to improve and change things, now that's a completely different category. So, you know, some of my biggest tips for small businesses: don't feel like you have to do everything. Somebody else may tell you completely differently, and that's fine. You don't feel like you have to do everything, because you're going to reach a point of diminishing returns if you spread yourself too thin. So really evaluate in your social media marketing, you know, how much of it do you want to do on your own? If you know you just don't have it's not feasible for you to hand any of that off to somebody else to execute, well, then streamline what you're doing. You know, if you don't like Twitter, don't hang out on Twitter. If you love LinkedIn, that's where you need to be the most engaged. That's where you need to be the most active. So double down on the 1 or 2 platforms that you like, and really double down, be active, engage with people, spend the time to engage in conversations and make comments, leave the politics alone. There's no reason to start a fight with anything, and then in that, talk about your why, talk about your reason, your why behind your business. So what I've been talking to my clients recently about is, hey, what you do in your business is not who your business is, right? What do you stand for? What you do is different. Same thing as an individual person, right? Who I am is not what I do in my business. It's different. Does that make sense? Am I explaining it?
Yeah, it makes a lot of sense, definitely.
So some businesses are very, they're champions of kindness, or they're champions of giving back. They're champions of making a difference in the lives of the people around them. And if that's who they really are, talk about that. Maybe they just happen to sell insurance or just happen to fix cars, but that's not who they really are. Okay. So start talking about, who you really are as a business. You are a champion for other small businesses. You like to promote those other small businesses, and that's who you are. You happen to be a travel agent. That's the service that you execute on, but that's not necessarily who you are first. Does that make sense?
Exactly. The other thing I wanted to mention about, especially you being a veteran's owned business, not only a woman, but you're a veteran that owns her own business. And you're part of the organization called the Florida Association of Veteran-Owned Businesses here in Orlando. And I'd like our listeners to know more about that, because I have a lot of veterans that listen to this show and would want to find out more about it.
So FAVOB, we operate very similar. So we're a 501c3-6. So we're a nonprofit organization, but not tax exempt, meaning so it's structured like a chamber of commerce. So if you join a chamber of commerce, that expense for joining is a business expense, but not a tax write-off. The reason why FAVOB exists is, number one, we believe that veterans make the absolute best business owners and employees that exist. We find that there's a very big disconnect between what the capabilities of a veteran has. Anybody who serves, we have this, this set of capabilities, and in part, largely, our society lacks the understanding of the breadth and depth of our capabilities just across the board. Kind of any senior NCO or officer that gets out of the military, they're a COO in a box. They are a chief operating officer in a box. I mean, I've got friends who spent 20 to 30 years in the military, and they had teams that were global. They managed, multi-million-dollar budgets, but they come over here and they apply for a job at a corporation, and those hiring folks are scratching their head going, well, what do you know about our business? They know people, they know logistics, they know systems, they know processes, and they know them on a grand global scale. We make excellent leaders. So for all those things, we personally think veterans are phenomenal. The data supports it. Florida has over 185,000 veteran-owned businesses right here in the state of Florida. We generate annually sales or income of $57 billion of revenue here in the entire state of Florida. So we really are we're kind of a big deal, and we want to become a force to be reckoned with, because it's good for the community, right? We feel like if we can band together, help each other grow businesses, educate veterans who are getting out of the military that, hey, owning a business is an absolute viable option for you, and here's how you can do it, and here's a ready-made support system to help you do that. And then also, working towards getting the state of Florida, local municipalities, and major corporations to have procurement programs for businesses. So we want the state of Florida. We want local business owners and larger corporations and small municipalities to choose veteran-owned businesses when they have a project that needs to be done. You know, we say what we're going to do, we show when we say we're going to do it, and we get it done every time. And that's the strength of who we are. Not to mention the fact that I happen to love to hang out with veterans. The camaraderie that we have together is phenomenal. And the growth that FAVOB has experienced in the last 12 months is amazing, and specifically during the pandemic. You know, so that's really a success story. When this pandemic hit in March, you know, we were on a conference call, that the state committee was on a conference call. And kind of at the end, you know, I was like, guys, what are we going to do? Like, moving forward, we know we're kind of paused. We don't know what that looks like. You know, what are we going to do to help everybody feel like they're still connected? And the idea was like, well, you know, let's explore some virtual events. And over the course of, you know, 3 to 4 weeks, we put all of that together, and we rotate through the different chapters, you know, responsibility for organizing those. As a matter of fact, tomorrow, my chapter is hosting our Lunch and Learn, where the Power Hour 1 hour lunch on Zoom, which you can register. And that's going to be really great. I have a wonderful panel lined up, some folks from the Orlando Business Journal, and I have 3 business owners that can talk about, one's going to talk about, you know, how the VA helped him in his business and why he's successful now thanks to you know, the VA and how they've supported him. And then I have 2 business owners that we're going to talk about their successes, failures, and struggles through the pandemic and kind of how they've navigated that and where they're at right now. So I think those stories are of strength and resilience is extremely important to talk about. And so I'm excited about that. But, you know, over the course of you know, just a few months, we now have over 200 paid current members. We have 3 chapters.
That is fantastic.
At the beginning of March, we had 1 trustee at the trustee level. We now have 14. Every time, you know, we have sponsors for our virtual events. And I mean, it really has just exploded in this environment. And honestly, I was really worried that we were going to be in big trouble through the course of this without having face-to-face events. I was very, very worried, but I couldn't be more proud of, you know, my Orlando chapter, the state board, how we've all pulled together and really just knocked this out of the park. And once again, reinvented ourselves. So we have really big, lofty goals. We want to be a statewide organization. We have interest in Ocala, Jacksonville, South Florida for additional chapters. We looked for those to join and come online later this year. So, you know, like I said, I mentioned there's 185,000 veteran-owned businesses. I want to get to know every one of them. I think every one of those should be FAVOB members. You know, let's pull together. We know what it's like to operate in a team. We know what well-organized teams can do. We can accomplish, I mean, we take over the world, right?
Definitely. I mean, you guys all fought together and served together. I grew up with, you know, I grew up in that area because my dad was a Vietnam vet. Thank God, you know, knock on wood, he came home okay. Yeah. But I grew up around with aunts and uncles. All my aunts and uncles that were not blood relative were part from the VBA. I grew up, you know, with World War II veterans and Vietnam veterans, and even today, my grandchildren, every one of them is served in the armed forces. So I'm very, very not only proud of you, but proud of the people I've been around my whole life that educated me on, you know, not only being different, but to be proud of being a United States citizen, to protect our country, to give up part of ourselves for others. So especially like you said with this pandemic, sometimes I get very aggravated when you see things and hear things people doing wrong, and the politics of everything going on with it, that you just want to shake everybody and say, hey. That's why I come on and I say, look, it'll all be okay. Let's relax. Let's calm down. I always say to my guests, I'm the fun one. we're here to have fun. When we talk on my show, nothing's scripted, nothing is, everything is laid back. We want it to be that way because once we get off this program, we go listen to the news again, and we go outside, and it's like all over again. But it's very rewarding to listen to what your organization's doing. And the thing is also, I mean, our government is actually seeing this as well, because I growing up with the Vietnam veterans and the disabled war veterans and the World War II veterans. They didn't want to give them a chance. They gave them money to go to college and buy a house, but you didn't do anything else with it. You couldn't get a decent job. You couldn't go, unless thank God my dad had the opportunity to go back to college, be a businessman. But then at the same time, it's like there weren't any opportunities to be an entrepreneur. And I'm glad these doors are opening for our veterans and maybe getting more of them off the street and not look like beggars anymore, and that they're actually, giving back to society. Even though you gave up your lives for us, you shouldn't have to put all that out there, but you should have it if you want it.
Right, exactly. And, I just want to make sure everybody knows that you don't have to be a veteran to join FAVOB. If you just believe in our cause or you want to do business with veteran-owned businesses, this is really, the organization to jump in on. And there's
the right thing to do. You're working with veterans, and there's no better place.
It's really neat. We all have amazing stories, and 1/3 of my business comes from contacts I've made through FAVOB. And that story can be repeated over and over and over again. And likewise, there's so many cool stories of business owners inside of FAVOB working together. So I just did a rebrand for, a client a couple weeks ago who, FAVOB member, and it's been such a pleasure to work with him. And it's just been really, really great. And I see stories over and over and over again where FAVOB members get together and work together, and they're doing business. It's really cool to see.
Why don't you put out a information about the organization now, a website, phone number, how to reach out to you, both with the business and with FAVOB?
So FAVOB's website is favob.net, or you can just Google FAVOB and that puppy will pop right up. We're all over the place on the web. Our Facebook page, FAVOB Orlando or Tampa Space Coast, are really great locations to get some information. So yeah, and LinkedIn, if you're active on LinkedIn, go like us on LinkedIn. We get a lot of activity there. We've got about 2,000 followers on our LinkedIn page. That one's pretty good as well. All of our events are on our website, favob.net, and not too hard to find. Or find me on Facebook. I'm always talking about them.
What about marketing for Smarty Pants? Where is your home base? Where are your clients? So we know who's ever listening knows where they can reach out to you.
My clients are in Orange County and Brevard, and actually had one out of state as well. So, I'll talk to anybody. And so my website, marketingsmartypants.com, or you can find me on Facebook. I'm around there, LinkedIn too. So
I will definitely put in the resource section for this show all the contact information. We're also part of BNI members, so BNI members reach out. We're an international organization, and we would love to hear referrals from you and cross chapters and all that. I'm here to make sure that Patricia gets a shout out. I also want to find out, you have how many children? 3?
4.
4 children. So any plans to travel, any bucket lists that you guys want to save and go to, or dream trips that you're interested in doing, or any special places that you and the family have gone to in the past?
Yeah, lots of those. So as far as bucket, my 2 older kids were born in Alaska. So Mommy would love to take them back someday. I think that would be really fun. They were super little when we left, and I think that would be, you know, really a blast to take them back and let them see that. As far as, you know, and of course my younger two boys as well, but definitely my older two, I'd love to experience that with them. And as far as really great places we've been before, when my kids were a little younger and I was homeschooling them, we did a few road trips in, you know, the southeast part of the United States. And some of my favorite places, I mean, I love history. So, you know, St. Augustine is by far one of my favorite places in the whole world. It is the oldest city here in the United States. I really loved Mount Vernon. That was amazing. I've actually been to some of the Confederate POW camps, Andersonville, or I think it's Andersonville, the prison there in Alabama, or Georgia. That's a very humbling experience to be there and read the stories and find out what happened. And it just really, you just need to go. It's incredible. Ruby Falls in Tennessee, we went there, and that was really incredible. The kids saw that. But and then I'm a big fan of Washington, D.C. I love all of the museum stuff. We took the kids there on the mall. They were little. I got to tell the stories. I love art and all this other stuff. My kids are just buck wild, and they would much rather go run around. So we go to this, and you know, the museum, and you know, we're looking at all the arts, and I just wanted 10 minutes to stand in front of this Rembrandt, right?
Oh
my oldest son, who I think he was like, I don't know, 9 or 8, 9, whatever at the time, was literally having a meltdown. I mean, the kid was coming unglued, and I'm like, I just want 10 minutes to stand in front of a Rembrandt.
That is the most beautiful picture in the world by Rembrandt.
And he's literally melting, you know. And I was like, this is the mom life. I got it, you know.
Oh goodness.
So I really am looking forward to getting back to DC and at my leisure walking the mall and hopping in and seeing all of those things.
Smithsonian. So. I mean, I've been to when the Vietnam Wall went up, when my dad went, and of course when they put the Martin Luther King tribute up there, and the disabled war veterans. I haven't seen that one yet. But the Smithsonian and, like you said, Mount Vernon and so many other things, it's like I said, when it's like going to New York, you can't see every single museum. You can't see every single park every time you go someplace. Even here in Orlando, there's so many things that I've yet to see that I want to see, and it's right out our own backyard. And that's why I try to tell people, look, even if you don't have thousands of dollars to do something, you don't need you may want to reach out to me, a travel agent. What can I do in Florida, or what can I do in Orlando, and I can give you some ideas. But you know, even just taking half an hour or an hour drive, just going somewhere, and you find something to do. It's something new and interesting to do.
Right. Or stop and take the time to read all those little historical plaques that are all over the city. Just stop and read them, because so much history happens right here.
We don't realize how much has happened in 244 years of our country. And it happens so fast in the speed. I mean, I watch with my husband on National Geographic, you know, the history of Greece, and that's 4,000 or 5,000 years old. And we look at our country, that's 244 years old. And we've gone through so much in such little time that it just goes by like the speed of light.
Yeah, and there's so much richness and depth to our history.
Exactly. Yeah. And I think if more of us, and I always try to look at the bright side of everything, if more of us just look into that, I think there would be less fighting, less arguing, less, you know, people hating each other, to read exactly what happened and look at things with a different perspective, that we can understand what's going on with life. And I mean, everybody has their own thing, and I'm not a prejudiced person. I'm not against anybody, but I think if we just learn to read and understand what exactly went on, I think we would all understand each other better in life.
Right, right. No, and I agree. You know, I think finding ways, you know, to come together and get to know what, you know, understanding is always the goal, right? And that's the hardest thing to accomplish. And, you know, the more that, you know, we travel and we see, you know, historical events and we learn more about that and kind of experience what other people have experienced, is we can gain a greater understanding, and then at the same time be more empathetic with somebody else's perspective, belief system, their culture.
Exactly. And that's one of the reasons Echevarria Travel loves doing groups. We love getting all different types of people together and learn from one another, not just the destination, but learning from each other. So I want to thank Patricia for coming on today. And please reach out to me so I could refer her to you. Any questions, 407-910-6469 at EchevarriaTravel.com. And we look forward to seeing you next week, where I'll have guests Ariane Lewis from Club Med on. Thank you, Patricia, for coming on, and thank you for serving in the armed forces and talking to us about your business and about VAVOB. Thank you so much.
Thanks for having me.
Have a great day.